In this video, we will be covering working with storage configurations from the power user perspective in FreezerPro. Note that by default, the power user role in the system is the lowest ranked role that permits a user to work with, i.e. create and manage, storage configurations. This tutorial will take place primarily in the main navigation panel on the left-hand side of the user interface in the Freezers and Boxes section. To begin, expand the Freezers and Boxes section. In this section, we may add, delete, and edit freezers, freezer groups, subdivisions, and boxes. First, we will create a freezer group. Freezer groups are useful tools which can be used to group several freezers together into one section, such as all of the freezers in a single lab room. To create a freezer group, select the Add New Freezer tool and select the Add Freezer Group button. To finalize creating a freezer group, enter a name for it and select the OK button. Next, we will create a freezer. To create a freezer, select the Add New Freezer tool and select the Add Freezer button. An Add New Freezer window will be displayed. To assign a name to the new freezer, enter it into the Freezer Name text box. To give the freezer a brief description, you may enter some description text in the description text box. Next, there are two available checkbox options which, when checked, will provide you with even further options. The first checkbox is for adding a subdivision hierarchy to your freezer. If you choose to do so, FreezerPro will create as many subdivisions as you decide when the freezer is created, so that you do not need to manually add subdivisions individually later on. By clicking the checkbox, we are presented with options for names for the subdivisions and how many to create. For this tutorial, we will create a hierarchy with one door inside the freezer. Next, we may choose to add an additional level to the hierarchy by selecting the Add Level button. Added levels may be removed by selecting the Remove Level button. For this freezer, we will end our hierarchy with 3 levels inside each door. The second checkbox performs a similar function as the first. However, instead of adding subdivisions to our freezer, it will add boxes to each of the subdivisions on the final level of the hierarchy. By clicking the checkbox, we are presented with options for the type of box we would like to have created and the number of boxes we would like to have created on each final section of our freezer hierarchy. For this freezer, we will create 2 boxes of a 10 by 10 type. Since we ended our hierarchy with 3 levels, there will be 2 10 by 10 boxes on each level for a total of 6 boxes. To add this freezer to our inventory, we will select the Add button. To expand the freezer, simply select the plus sign. It may become necessary to add additional subdivisions and boxes to an existing freezer at some point. To do so, we may use 2 different tools. First, to add a new subdivision to a freezer, select the freezer or subdivision where you would like the new subdivision to be added and select the Add New Subdivision tool in the toolbar. Alternatively, you may right-click and choose the Add New Subdivision tool. To add a new subdivision, simply give it a name and description in the corresponding text boxes. After you have done so, you may select the Add button. The same process exists for adding new boxes to a subdivision or freezer. Select the freezer or the subdivision with the freezer where you would like the box to be placed, and select the Add New Box tool. Again, you may right-click and select the Add New Box tool in the pop-up menu. To add a new box, simply give it a name and a description in the corresponding text boxes and assign it a box type. Once you have done so, you may finalize the entry by selecting the Add button. Freezers can be added to freezer groups simply by dragging and dropping them into the freezer group folder. We can move the freezer we created into the freezer group we created earlier by selecting it by clicking on the name and dragging it with the mouse into the freezer group folder. This drag and drop method applies for all sections of our storage configurations. Subdivisions can be moved to other freezers or subdivisions Boxes can be moved to other subdivisions and freezers, etc., simply by dragging and dropping them. This makes moving an entire storage structure easy should a physical freezer fail and require you to move everything. By double-clicking on a freezer, subdivision, or box, you can open the list view or box view, respectively, to view the samples within. There are a few additional tools that may be used in the freezers and boxes section, which may be seen when right-clicking on any of the storage structures. By right-clicking, a pop-up menu will show all of the available options in this section. We can add a new freezer, add an identical freezer, which will allow you to create a storage structure with all of the same subdivisions and boxes as a desired freezer without the samples. This is a very useful tool for when you may be working with several identical storage structures. We can also delete a freezer, add a new box, print a barcode for a freezer, subdivision, or box, should the user be permitted to use barcode printers, view sample reports for all of the samples in the selected structure, view the access log for the selected structure, browse all of the boxes in the selected structure, browse all of the samples in the selected structure, and edit the selected structure using the Properties tool. These minor tools are covered in videos respective to their nature, however it is important to note that you may access them at any time. An additional note for this section, as with many other components in the software, you may not delete a freezer if it is in use and contains samples. This concludes the Power User Working with Storage Structures video tutorial. Up next, we will discuss working with boxes and well plates. To review, the Power User role is the lowest level role which permits a user to manage storage structures. Users may add subdivisions and boxes to a storage structure at any time. Subdivisions and boxes can be moved between freezers by dragging and dropping. Freezers can be replicated quickly using the Add Identical Freezer tool.